Hello, everyone. Welcome to BizzTalk World Talk Show presented by Clickaway Creators. Today, we have Mr. Simon Haigh with us. Mr. Haigh is a growth strategist. That's what people call him. And he really, basically helps organizations and leaders in unlocking, build and sustain businesses, leadership, brand and mindset growth through his coaching, his consulting, his training, publications, speaking, and e-learning programs as well. So he's a lot more than you think of. And his work is endorsed by world's #1 leadership thinker, Marshall Goldsmith, as well. We'll dwell down, in his profile even further. We'll talk about his books. We'll talk about his, top two best-selling books as well on Amazon. We'll talk about everything. But without further ado, meanwhile, let me introduce you to the man himself. Hello, Mr. Haigh. How are you doing?
Great to see you. Great to meet you. And it's I'm looking forward to this conversation and talking about everything growth.
A pleasure is all ours, and thank you very much for joining us for this session. Okay, so as you've seen that I've tried my level best to cover things about you in my own words, but it's time for our viewers to hear something about you in your own words. So let's start this conversation with a basic thought process. Like, if you can brief us about your journey so far, that would be a great start.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be delighted. So I started life in the UK, my business life 28 years ago. I started as a private practice lawyer. I was a technology lawyer. I worked for one of the biggest law firms in London and also in Dublin, where I live now in Ireland. I then moved from private practice law into in-house. So I was the first legal counsel for Dell, UK and Ireland, over here in Ireland. I worked for another American semiconductor company. And then in 2007, I moved with my family to Australia. I did an MBA over there. I ended up becoming a CEO of an American company in Australia. And then the last 8 years, since 2013, has been the most fun. I own and run my own business, which you can see above, GCM Advisory. I also trade under my own name, simonhaigh.com. Simon Haigh, HAIGH.com is the website. And the work I do today really comes from all the experiences I've had over 28 years at C-suite, senior level, seeing deals being done, seeing how people negotiate, seeing how leaders can grow businesses, and looking at the mindset and the leadership skills and the business skills required for good growth. So that's a quick answer.
You have a great experience. I mean, of more than 2 decades. So you must have, this trend of team and people management, to be very precise. So because you have been into, the C-level executives and, these journey as well. We'll talk about your venture, your organization as well. But before that, if we can have an insight about your methods and your aspects of, how do you understand people management and how you really do it?
Yeah, I guess I would start by saying that I would be described as a bit of a truth seeker, which means I always look for what it is that motivates leaders and entrepreneurs. And so I start with the inside, right? So I have a coaching and training and lecturing process that starts with, so what is your mindset? If you want to be an entrepreneur or a leader, how aware are you? How resilient are you? What's your motivational levels? What's your emotional intelligence, etc.? So I start with the inside, the mindset. And then once my client have got a better idea as to what drives them, what motivates them, then I move into the second bit, which is what are your leadership skills or attributes? So how good are you at influencing people? How assertive are you? How much networking do you do? How well known are you? What brand identity do you have? And then the third thing that I move into, once you've looked at mindset and leadership, the third thing then is business. So once you've got an idea of who you are and your capabilities, what strategy do you need that fits in with your mindset and with your leadership skills? Because they all need to fit together. So what strategy, what business planning? And then finally, the fourth thing is, what brand do you want to project to the world? So the four relate together. What's your mindset? What's your leadership skills? What's your business growth? And what's your brand skills? And I bring them all together.
All right. That's why people call you the growth strategist.
Correct.
I believe.
Correct.
Okay. Before we now of course we'll go more deeper into this term and why are you basically called the growth strategist in that sense. If you can talk about one of your book just for our viewers so that they can also understand about your literatures as well. Your book, which is How to Be a Better Deal Closer and Deal Making for Corporate Growth, if I'm not wrong. What's the basic content and insights of the literature that you hold in that book?
Okay, and I wrote a third book as well, Contract Law in an E-commerce Age 20 years ago. And all three books are about how do people navigate relationships and negotiate and navigate a value from an ethical win-win perspective to get the deal. Okay, so it's all about the human relationship side of sales. And so, for example, how to be a better deal closer and deal making for corporate growth. I came up with a methodology called the 7 Ps of deal making. So it's a process to help anybody become better at closing deals. So the first P is planning. So do you know what negotiation is? Do you know what sales are? Do you know what value means? And then the second P then is so the first P is principles. The second P is planning, right? So if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So what plans do you have in place to try and maximize your deal-making capabilities? The third P then is power. What power do you have in a conversation? Ethical, honest power. The third P then is players. Who are the players in a deal? Is it you? Is it somebody else? Is it more people? The fifth P then is performance, the actual deal itself. How do you navigate? How do you communicate? How do you spot if somebody's lying to you? How do you deal with silence? And then the final two then are payout or post-mortem. Putting it all to bed is the sixth one. So once you've done the deal and shaken hands, you still need to put a contract together. And then finally, payout or post-mortem, which means even though you've done the deal, you still need to see how you could improve. And even if you haven't done the deal, maybe that's a good thing, because every failed deal is a down payment for the next deal. So it's a 7P process I've created.
That's very beautifully put. I mean, I've never heard of this concept. I mean, it sounds really beautiful to me. All right, that's an insight for our viewers. I guess we can have a link of your book in the description. Our viewers can really go right there and check it out. Of course, I'll also try to get it to read the content personally on a more knowledge sharing standpoint. Moving further, if we can talk about now about your the growth strategist, you being a growth strategist. First of all, why are you called the growth strategist? If you can have an explanation on that.
Okay, that's interesting. So about a year and a half ago, I decided to pivot the business and move from just deals and negotiations to the whole area of growth, the 4 areas of growth: leadership, mindset, leadership, business, and brand. And there's a group in Ireland, a networking group, and I gave them some options. I asked them to describe what they think I should be, right? And there were a number of options. And 80% said, Simon, you're a growth strategist, because you put strategy, you help people with their growth journey, and you put a good strategy around it, right? So that's how that started. And I guess if you would really describe what I do, I shine a light on the confidence of the entrepreneur or leader to help them maximize their growth opportunities. In other words, I help match people's confidence with their capabilities. We're all smart. We all have good skill sets, right? But so many of us are lacking confidence. So what I do is I match the confidence with the capability. And then I observe the person I'm working with, and I get a sense of what frequency are they operating at. Are they going to be high growth? Are they going to be slower growth? Is this a lifestyle business? Do they want to take this business and sell it quickly? And I navigate and I adapt what I say to them in terms of the next steps of their progress based upon their frequency. So I guess it's all about me being very aware of who I'm working with, and also improving the awareness of the client as well. Because awareness, if you don't have awareness, your growth is going to be like this and this. You need to have good awareness to keep a consistent growth.
That's right. That's right. A follow-up question on this would be, is there a difference in the approach of, on an average scale, on a scale of being an average entrepreneur, does the geography and the market affects the confidence of an entrepreneur? Let's say if an entrepreneur is in India, will he, act differently if he's in Australia or if he's in Europe or somewhere else?
That's a great question. So the quick answer is yes. And I do a lot of work around culture and how different cultures impact negotiation and influencing and deal making capabilities. And so there are that there's a map that shows, how all the different cultures impact, and there are the very direct cultures, for example. So there are direct cultures and indirect cultures. So direct cultures would be like American, Scandinavian, German, Australian, right? So they say what they want and they get the point across. Whereas there are more indirect cultures, which tend to be more, some of the Far Eastern Asian cultures would be more indirect. The Irish culture would be more indirect. So that's one difference. I guess there are other differences around gender as well. So there are certain cultures where there's more gender equality, and there are certain cultures where there's probably more inequality. It's interesting with India. I've had a couple of female clients from India. One executive from one of the world's biggest fashion companies connect with me on LinkedIn and said, I need my confidence to be improved. I've seen the work you do. Can you work with me? So I don't want to overgeneralize about cultures, but there are certain cultures that are more confident. There are certain cultures that are more, certainly from a female perspective, there's some catch up to be made. There are certain cultures that are more direct, more indirect. Every culture is different. Every culture is different.
That's right. I understand that would be a part of your workshop if you conduct it sometimes. It's just a session that you guys are having, but still to have more insights on this. What should I do? Let's say I'm from India, like I'm from India, and if I'm an entrepreneur, what is the what's the breaking point? What's the threshold that I can break up to, and change my confidence level to match the frequency of, let's say, someone sitting in States? Is there something that I can do by sitting just here itself?
Okay, so the quick answer is you need to look at three things. Number one, do you as an entrepreneur have enough drive, enough ambition? Are you prepared to work hard enough? Are you motivated enough? Do you have enough grit? Are you resilient enough to keep working at this? Because success doesn't just happen. It takes a long time, right? So you have to have drive and energy and motivation. That's number one. Number two, and these have to be aligned. So these have to be in a straight line. Number one is drive. Number two is, have you really thought about what strategy you need? If you want to do business in the States, have you done a strategy on what communication skills will resonate with American purchasers? Have you done analysis around how you can influence them, how you can be assertive rather than aggressive or passive? So the second thing is strategy. And the third thing, and this is the third thing that most people fail at, is, are you looking for the right opportunities, right? Most entrepreneurs have drive and they have strategy, but they look for the wrong opportunities. And so you need to do a lot of research and a lot of planning about who you can connect with, and then work backwards. What do you say to them? And then how do you come across? What's your energy that comes across? So it's drive, strategy, and chasing the right opportunity.
That's again very beautifully put. Last question on this, then we'll end up and we'll move to the other one. Before this you used two terms, direct and indirect. Can we use this term as the the developed, like for developed and underdeveloped or developing nations? I mean, when you say Australia, when you say States, when you talk about some countries in Europe, if I talk about, so the majorly the names that you said are considered as the developed nations out there, and they are more direct towards it in terms of their dialogue delivering and everything. So that's the basic difference, developing and underdeveloped countries or the developed countries?
Yes and no. The countries that I've mentioned are, but then Japan is indirect, and Japan is a very developed country. Japan is indirect. So yes, but also no. And for example, Saudi Arabia, right, would be, some would say it would be direct, some would say it would be indirect. Russia, some would say it would be direct, some would say it would be indirect. So it really also depends on who you deal with. But certainly the Far East of Asia, China, Japan, I would say the female Indian culture would be more indirect as well. The male would be slightly more direct. But again, it depends on who you're talking with.
Exactly. It depends on the context as well. No, that makes sense. Let's have, there are so many things to talk about, but we have this time constraint because Mr. Haigh is pretty busy gentleman. So we'll have our last question for the session, which would be, in a generic sense, what would you advise to the young professionals in your industry, and how one can become a straight, a growth strategist if somebody wants to become?
Well, I think the first thing is you need to really, I talk about alignment, right? Alignment. So to be successful in your career, you need to be doing what your heart and your mind and your soul really wants to be doing, right? So if you really want to be an entrepreneur or a thought leader, you have to really want to feel that inside, you want to think it inside, and then you have to work hard, and you need to exercise what I call grit, right? So grit is very important. You need to have passion, you need to have hope that you're going to be successful, patience as well. You need to be very honest to the audience about who you are, right? Because people connect with somebody who's authentic, right? People can, there's something like 100,000 more fake Rolex watches in the world than real Rolexes. And yet people still want real Rolexes. So you need to be passionate, you need to be hopeful, you need to be hardworking, you need to be authentic, and you need to have an identity. There needs to be something that you say on LinkedIn or wherever that people turn around and say, wow, that person has a voice. They've said something unique, a little bit controversial, a little bit different, because there are millions of coaches and consultants out there. So you need to say something slightly different. And for me, it's about, I guess I would be seen to be a bit of a truth seeker. I like to map mindset and leadership and the spiritual side of growth with business and strategy. And initially people said that's a bit strange, but it seems to be resonating. So you need to be seen to be something different.
Okay, that's again, I mean, after every answer, I just keep on repeating that it's very, beautifully put. Of course, you're a speaker, you're into publications as well, so you know what to say and when to say and how to say it precisely. All right, last question, which is like from the standpoint of where people can find you. So if you can guide our viewers where people can really find you to learn more about you, or get some more motivations out of you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, well, I'm on LinkedIn, regularly on LinkedIn. So I'm Simon Haigh, SimonHaigh, as you can see on the screen. At LinkedIn, you can find me. I have plenty of followers now. Also, my website, simonhaigh.com. They would be that, but I'm also on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, but mainly LinkedIn and simonhaigh.com.
All right, I hope our viewers can find him. We'll also put these details in the description below to this video so that you guys can find Mr. Haigh again. And it was our pleasure, having Mr. Haigh on this session. So thank you very much, Mr. Haigh, for joining us and sharing, these many insights with us about your profile and a generic term about the industry as well. And we of course look forward to having a great chat with you again in the future on some other trending topics in the international business industry across the globe. And for our viewers, if you really like this chat with Mr. Haigh, please like and share this video with your peers, and also subscribe to ClickAway Creators YouTube channel to appreciate what we do. And you have more coming in from industry leaders like Mr. Simon Haigh. This was Sagar for BizzTalk World signing off. Thank you very much.